This is ACC Nation with Will Ogeman and Jim Quist, featuring ACC sports news and interviews. Available on streaming radio, podcast, and YouTube. 3 ACC teams are going bowling. We've got Clemson, Syracuse, and North Carolina. They've all reached that magic threshold of 6 wins. We're going to look at the Atlantic and Coastal Division standings in a few minutes, as well as preview the Week 8 games. First, Will and I are going to take a look back at Week 7 and share our thoughts on how ACC +1 teams are performing, or in some cases underperforming, or not performing at all. +1 being Notre Dame, of course. Let's start out with this Miami over Virginia Tech game. The Canes rolling into Blacksburg and taking a 20-14 win. And you mentioned the week prior that this game being on a regional sports network. Now we know why.
Yeah, so the story of this game was Miami dominated the first 3 quarters. They led 20-0 at the end of the third quarter and had outgained Virginia Tech 376-118. All of a sudden, Virginia Tech just figures something out in the fourth quarter, put up 14 points, now gained Miami 139-82. So they had more yards in the fourth quarter than they did the previous 3. Still only finished with 257 yards of offense. And then anyone who's watched Virginia Tech, on football much this year, know offense is a bit of a struggle, and that's still going to be a work in progress in the next year or two. Tyler Van Dyke had a big day again, second straight week with a huge game, 351 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. The story of this game and what really kept Virginia Tech in this game is Miami committed 17 penalties in this game. That was the most since the infamous game against Duke in 2015, where they won and should have lost because of all the fumbles that shouldn't have counted. That game, they committed 23 penalties. The Hokies have lost 4 in a row. Got a bye week this week with a game against NC State, a new look NC State here in a couple of weeks. And they're still technically not out of a bowl, but it's not looking very good.
No, not at all. You talk about penalties. I was reading that Alabama is like leading with the number of flags and penalties that they've had on them this year, which explains a lot about why they're playing the way they are this year.
Yeah, very uncharacteristic of them. And we saw it bit them in the butt again on Saturday. And cool, because I was unfortunately at a wedding and missed a lot of football on Saturday, but happened to see, I saw multiple highlights of that knuckleball that went through the uprights.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, it didn't matter how it went through, as long as it went through.
Yeah, well, it didn't matter how pretty it was, as long as the job was done.
That's right. Next game up was Syracuse, and you kind of alluded to NC State here. Syracuse romping to a 24-9 win over NC State. To be frank, I was shocked at this game.
I have said that Syracuse has kind of a golden horseshoe thing with them this year because of a lot of their wins have come on some, luck that has gone their way. And obviously in this game, the NC State didn't have Devin Leary. It came out on Saturday morning that he was going to have surgery and miss the rest of the season, which left them to Jack Chambers, like I mentioned last week, as a transfer from Charleston Southern, who was more of a run first quarterback. They did throw 8. He was 18 of 30, 160 yards, a lot of short stuff. Almost kind of had to do it because Syracuse, as much as I've probably knocked on them, I will give them credit because they are really good against the run. They held the Wolfpack to 2.5 yards per carry. They've allowed less than 100 yards rushing in 4 of the 6 games this year. So they're really good. Second in yards per game, third in yards per carry. So that's a really good run defense that the Orange do have. And, their offense, had a pretty solid game. Sean Tucker and Garrett Schrader combined for 179 yards on the ground, averaging 6 yards per carry. And it feels like these last 2 weeks, NC State's run defense has struggled because they gave up its 2 highest rushing totals of the season. If you remember, Florida State had a big game on the ground against them last week, even though the Wolfpack ended up winning the game. But that is a concern now for the Wolfpack going forward. You're not going to have Devin Leary. Your offense is going to look a lot different, and your defense can only do so much. And I'm just curious how this is going, how the rest of the season is going to play out, because this was supposed to be a special season for the Wolfpack. It has been derailed by this unfortunate injury to Leary, and I don't necessarily think at the same time offensive coordinator Tim Beck is scheming very well with with the personnel he has on this offense.
Yeah, nothing like being thrown into a really hot fire and not having any protection at all. So it's
Mm-mm.
like, wow. Yeah, you're right. This was supposed to be a very special season for NC State, and it has turned into just the opposite. Um, and I just cannot see any kind of recovery here, at least not anytime soon. Whether or not it's enough to get them to a bowl is questionable, even at this point in my mind. So, I mean, they're 5-2, so they only have to get one more win, but nonetheless, it just boy, it's deflating.
Yeah, and say they have a bye as well this week, so they have that going for them. And their next, like I said, next game they're hosting Virginia Tech on a 2 Thursdays from now on the 27th. That is definitely a winnable game. They also could be Boston College in a couple of weeks on November 12th. Those are probably the two most winnable games left on their schedule, and yeah, they're still definitely a bowl, but yeah, the expectations are going to be greatly lowered now.
Yeah. Yep. Clemson and Florida State, boy, it feels like it's going back to the way it used to be, with these two teams actually being competitive here. And Florida State is emerging and doing much better. Clemson, I'm not going to say they're struggling this year so much as, well, there has been some struggle on offense. That's coming along. I think they're doing a lot better. But Florida State is certainly building a program here that is going to be competitive. Several teams within the ACC that are doing the same thing. So Clemson's not going to have a clear run in the future if things keep going in this direction. The final score there, 34-28, Clemson over Florida State.
You hit a couple things on the head there, Jim. I think the thing about Clemson's offense, I think you're 100% spot on with. Their offense has really gotten better as the seasons come along, and it's not just they're not one dimensional. They're starting to do things in different ways. I mean, DJ Uyangale had 3 touchdown passes in this game through just 203 yards, but they had a big game from Will Shipley, 121 yards on the ground. That they really held the ball, a lot of ground control in this game, ran the ball 44 times in this game. Just a really, a big offensive performance on that. But Florida State made it interesting in the fourth quarter. They outscored Clemson 14-0, what turned a 34-14 game into the final 34-28 game. Jordan Travis, another strong passing game, 254 yards and 2 touchdowns. The Seminoles ran for 206 yards as a team, averaging 6 yards per carry. It was the highest total given up by Clemson this season. No one had even run for more than 125 yards on the Tigers this year. But yeah, I'm not super concerned about Florida State, even with this 3-game losing streak. Yeah, it kind of sucks if you're a Seminoles fan, but at the same time, you would have looked at this, before the season started. You would have been an underdog in these 3 games too. The fact that you've been fairly competitive in these games says that you are, as Jim mentioned, you're coming along. You're gonna get to a bowl. I still think there's definitely two more wins at least out there, and probably more when you look at the rest of the schedule. Georgia Tech, they get them out of their bye this week. That's a winnable game at Miami. We know they are a bit up and down so far to this season. Syracuse could be a struggle. Louisiana is a shell of its former self, and Florida is not exactly the Gators of the last few seasons. So I think there's several winnable games there, and I think going into the season we said I think a bowl is realistic, and I think they're going to get there, and I think that should be a successful season for Florida State.
I think the two things that motivate Florida State in a huge way, that if they came away with wins against Miami and Florida, um, their fans would be ecstatic.
Mhm.
So those are two games that you definitely want to watch. If you get an opportunity when you see those come up, make sure that you tune in, because those are games that I think are just going to be off the chart crazy.
Mhm.
The fans are going to be really ratcheted up. I think the players, the adrenaline level is going to be off the charts. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch those games. Bragging rights for the state of Florida. It's going to help a lot. Whoever wins those games is going to have a step up in the recruiting field. So
Mhm.
you're getting a lot of attention there.
Yeah, and just to bring this up too, and we'll get into it in a minute, but who would have thought this game's coming up this Saturday for Clemson to be so huge?
Yeah, yeah, not me.
Yeah, nobody had that in the preseason, but
No, no, that was not on anyone's bingo card at all, including neither Clemson nor Syracuse. So the next game was, boy, you want to talk about uh, disappointment and fans really pulling their hair out. Notre Dame, Stanford pulling out a 16-14 win over the Irish. And I'm telling you, you go on to the message boards and it's crazy stuff, crazy talk. Some of the articles that I've read, it's like, holy smokes, man. I mean, it's kind of early in this tenure for this coach, but wow, that's just insane.
yeah, people are overreacting just a little bit. 6 games into Marcus Freeman's
Yeah,
coaching career. Yeah, this is just a really weird, another bad loss for the Irish. Remember they lost to Notre Dame, or they lost to Marshall, second game of the year. That hasn't aged super well. Marshall's just 3-3 on the season. It's just kind of a weird game, and I think the offense is the issue. Drew Pine didn't look very good in this game, 13 of 27 passing. Tyler Buckner was supposed to be the guy, but he I think they would be better with him, but I still think there would be some offensive issues with this team. They just, outside of the tight end Max Mayer, they just don't have a whole lot of talent there. I just don't see it. A lot of people are, as you mentioned, they're calling for Tommy Rees to get fired, which I just thought it was so funny that they say that now, but when Brian Kelly left for LSU, and these same people were so excited to keep him because he decided to stay there instead of going to Baton Rouge. And yeah, it hasn't worked out. And I think this is more of a talent thing than it is an execution thing. And
yeah.
I don't you got to give them a little more time. Both
I,
of them really. And
I'm gonna,
see,
yeah. Go ahead.
I
Well,
was just going to say, remember, they have a really, really good recruiting class coming in the class of 23. So keep that in mind as well. They're going to get a lot better.
I want to throw up Jimbo Fisher here for a moment in Florida State, and as a reminder for people as to what happened when there was this transition that was going on when Jimbo left. Jimbo knew he was going out the door, and you can sort of put the pieces together. I think Kelly knew he was going out the door long before the decision was made, um, announced at least. And I think it had an impact on the talent level at Notre Dame. We can argue about that all night long, but it just does. And for a year, sometimes two, when you have a transition from one coach into another, and you can see Brian Kelly struggling at LSU. He's got talent down there, but you have to implement your system. You have to learn how your players play, what their talents are, what your coordinators are doing right and wrong, etc. It takes a year or so to get through that. Once you do, get your system up and going, typically your team is in good shape. I think that's going to be the case at both schools. As a matter of fact, I don't have much love for Brian Kelly one way or the other, or LSU for that matter. However, I do think he is a good coach. He will probably do well at LSU. I think the same thing is going to be true with Notre Dame. Be patient, fans. It's coming. 1 year down, 1 year off. Okay. Suck it up a little bit. it'll be all right.
Yeah, I don't see 4-8 happening like the one year.
No, no. Still some definite winnable games there on the schedule. Next game up, our last in a very short week. We've got 2 short weeks back to back, which is kind of unusual. North Carolina with a 38-35 win over Duke. Um, Duke is it just keeps amazing me on one level, and then on the other level, it's like North Carolina is amazing me that they're letting teams play to this degree against them. It's like, where's the defense?
Well, there is no D in North Carolina Tar Heels, Jim.
Nowhere.
Yeah, this was, I would say, this game played out to be very even. Just when you look at the stats, Duke outgained him by 6 yards, 542 to 536. Like I said, there is more like Ook than Duke, but that's what it is. And then, but I think that's more of a credit to just UNC having a really good offense. But Drake May looking like player of the year, another strong performance, 380 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, had 70 on the ground, had the big touchdown to late in the game, the go-ahead touchdown to give him the win. Josh Downs was huge in this game, 9 catches, 126 yards. Riley Leonard looked really, really good for Duke, 245 through the air, 130 on the ground. I don't think it's far-fetched to say he's the best quarterback that they've had since Daniel Jones. They ran the ball for 297 yards in this game. Shows you just where this team is getting so much better, and they're with the way they're going, they are kind of ahead of a schedule from where I expected them to be. I figured, they might win maybe 4 games this year, just setting up for the future. They've already got 4 wins, and there's, like I said, after they beat Virginia a few weeks ago, there's definitely some winnable games still on the schedule that can get them to a bowl. And if they can get to a bowl in year 1, I think that will say a lot about Mike Elko.
Let's talk about how teams stack up in the standings. Let's look at the Atlantic first. Clemson is in the conference 5-0, 7-0 overall. As we mentioned, they're one of the 3 teams that are going bowling. Syracuse is 3-0, 6-0 in overall play. Wake Forest at 1-1 in the conference, 5-1 overall. Florida State 2-3, 4-3 overall, which, as Will pointed out, that's kind of misleading. That is a very misleading record. And if they pull off, 2 more wins on their schedule, this team ought to go bowling. I cannot see them not. They keep improving as the season goes on. So this is a team I would look for in a bowl. And I think, depending on who they're matched up with, I think they're going to do very well. Disappointment time, but NC State is 1 game away from a bowl. And as you pointed out just a few moments ago, Will, that's a very doable, they're 1-1 in the conference, 5-2 overall. Louisville at 1-3 in the conference, 3-3 overall. Some question as to whether or not they'll see a bowl. Boston College, I'm sorry to say, you will not be seeing a bowl unless the world comes to an end. They're at 1-3 in the conference and 2-4 overall. Now, over in the Coastal, our 3rd team that is going bowling is North Carolina, 3-0 in the conference, 6-1 overall. Here's the surprise. At number 2 in the Coastal, it's Georgia Tech, 2-1. You didn't have that on the bingo card. I know that. 2-1 in the conference, 3-3 overall. Some question here. Do you think they go bowling or not? I mean, I don't know what to think of this team at this point. At the beginning of the season, I sort of had an idea. I had some confidence that maybe something good was going to happen. Now we have an interim coach who's making stuff happen.
They'd have to pull off an upset, but looking what they have the rest of the way, they play Virginia Thursday night. We'll get more into that in a bit. Travel to Florida State. I don't think they're winning that game. Travel to Blacksburg to take on Virginia Tech. That game is winnable. Home to Miami, I would probably take the Hurricanes, but I think that's winnable. And then closing out the season at North Carolina and at Georgia. So I don't think they're winning that one. So I there's a chance they could, I think 5 wins is not too far out of the realm of possibility if they can be like say the Virginia schools.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, if they can get that and then pull off an upset somewhere the way, yeah, they can get to it. And then maybe they take a good long look at Bernke as head coach. I don't think he's going to get a long term, but I think this is I think what he's done already is impressive. Getting the win getting these 2 wins over Pitt and Duke, and we'll get into Thursday here in a minute. But yeah, I don't think they're going to get to a bowl this year, but I still think uh, they can get the 4, maybe even 5 wins.
Which is a lot better than anyone anticipated.
Yeah,
Pitt 1-1 in the conference, 4-2 overall. I don't see any reason why Pitt shouldn't be going to a bowl.
yeah, they should get there.
Miami is 1-1, 3-3 overall. Boy, guys, you need to be on your game the rest of the season, because otherwise you're going to be parked in Miami, and that's not going to go over too well with people. But it is Cristobal's first season there, so anyway, miracles do happen sometimes. Duke 1-2 in the conference, 4-3 overall. There's maybe, who knows. Don't see Virginia Tech or Virginia, who round out the Coastal, getting to a bowl this season. Virginia Tech right now 1-3 in the conference, 2-5 overall. Virginia 0-3 in the conference, 2-4 overall. I would have expected, Virginia to have done better than this, but it just hasn't worked out that way. But because they've got talent, But
Yeah.
again, it's a first year under a new system, new coaches. You got to make adjustments, and sometimes quality players, and we have discussed this ad nauseum. Brennan Armstrong, good quarterback. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt in anybody's mind. He's a great quarterback. He has a lot of potential. People have been down on him this year because things are just not happening. But that's not all on Brennan Armstrong.
Right.
When you get a change of scheme and everything, and people are learning new stuff, some of your wide receivers are not going to where they should be going. It takes a while to learn all this stuff. And I think that we tend to forget that. If you look at the pros, there's several teams that I could certainly pull up that, have some quality quarterbacks and quality wide receivers, but they're under new coaching regimes. And what happens is when you teach something new, you have to relearn the whole program or learn a new program. And then you may, somebody calls one thing, you go running down the field, instead of turning in at 10 yards, you only go out 8. Well, the ball is being thrown to 10 yards. And I watched a video the other day. It was very informative, talking about how, and this had to do with the Bears.
I was just going to say, it sounds like a team you root for.
Yeah. This had to do with Justin Fields. Is one of those things, and it showed what happened. Somebody who was a tight end got blocked. He spent too much time blocking, so he didn't get down to his spot. Quarterbacks are taught how to throw to certain spots at the, if you talk about the end zone, the beginning of the end zone, the middle, and the back. Okay. So that's where you throw the ball, because that's where your receiver is supposed to be. And it showed why the guy was not there and he missed the ball. It wasn't on Fields. It's just one of those things that happens. It's something that you learn. So this is the type of thing that you have to learn on the college level as well when you have new coaches. And I think that's been a problem with Virginia this year, is that things are just not synced like they have in the past, because they knew that offense that was under an eye. And now you have something different. So simple. All right. Enough of the explanation. And
Yeah.
somebody will say, well, that's just an excuse. No, it's an explanation. It makes a lot of sense if you look at it. Let's look at week 8 schedule. Thursday, speaking of Virginia, Virginia takes on Georgia Tech in Atlanta. This I don't quite know what to make of this game because you've got two teams that one of them seems to be doing a lot better. One of them is still struggling mightily to find something that will click. And this could be a win for Georgia Tech, as you mentioned.
Yeah, I really have no idea what to think about this game myself. Coming into this season, like the biggest question I had was whether or not Jeff Collins would be the coach when this game happened, and obviously that answer was no. But I also did not think Virginia would look this bad offensively. But credit to Brennan Armstrong, he has played his two best games of the year over their last two games. He's starting to figure out this offense. He just needs some more help, around him. Obviously, the receivers need to do a better job of catching the ball, and the offensive coordinator needs to do a better job of calling plays. And I've gone on that rant a bunch. Obviously, Georgia Tech has had a couple of impressive wins in a row, beating Pitt and Duke, also coming off a bye. One of the things that has impressed me over the last couple of weeks is Georgia Tech started to use Hassan Hall more. In his last two games, he barely played early in the season. His season high in the first three games he played was not very high. I think his season total, or yeah, he season high in the first four games was 8 in carries. The last two games, he's had 20 and 17 carries. So with the new coaching staff, they're using Hall a lot more in the run game, and they're really reaping the benefits of it. Say 37 carries, 227 yards in those last two games. So he's been a big part of this offense since the new coaching staff has come on, and I'm wondering if he's going to be a big factor in this game. Obviously, we've seen Virginia struggle a little bit against the run. So I think if I'm going to make an official prediction on the podcast, I'll lean the Yellow Jackets here. But again, I don't feel super confident about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just sort of I'm 50-50 on this. I'm not even going to go
Yeah,
there with it. Saturday, October 22nd, the big game of the week for ACC plus one teams is at noon on ABC. Hey, it's Syracuse taking on Clemson. And as you said earlier, who would have thought at the beginning of the season, orange versus orange? It's sort of like the old spy versus spy from, I think it was Mad.
yeah, it was Mad Magazine. Yep, I remember that. Spy versus Spy.
Yep. I have my opinions on this, but I think that some of my opinions are based on um, subjective, inaccurate information in my head that I've carried over from previous action by Syracuse and previous action by Clemson too. So, you know, to be fair here, Clemson isn't the team that they have been in the past, and neither is Syracuse. So that being
Yeah.
said,
There's
no commitment from me, basically.
non-committal. Way to toe the fence there, Jim. Yeah, like you said, who would have thought at the beginning of the season this game would have so many implications on the Atlantic Division? Both teams undefeated at this point. Clemson is a 13.5 point favorite. It doesn't necessarily surprise me at all. Like I said, I'm just believing Syracuse has been getting by with a lot of luck, and I think it does run out here. I just don't see them being able to get enough on offense to get Clemson in trouble. And I'm not sure I fully go as far as to say Clemson covers, but I think they will definitely win this ball game.
Duke versus Miami. Could this be a surprise game?
Yeah, definitely. Looking at the line right here, the one I have is Miami as the 9.5 point favorite, and that just feels a little bit high. And
Hmm.
I would if gambling was legal in my state, I would put money on Duke plus 9.5 personally, but that's just me. But I do like we say there's upset potential here. Like say Miami's, Tyler Van Dyke's played his two best games of the season the last 2 weeks, and maybe this is just a change in offensive philosophy because Mario Cristobal loves to run the football. They haven't been doing it well, so he finally unless he's finally realized that, hey, Tyler Van Dyke's a pretty good quarterback, and maybe I should use that more. And he's had a lot of success the last 2 weeks, but we'll see if that's the trend continues here. But I'm gonna take the Hurricanes in this game. But if I was betting against the point spread, I'd probably take Duke in the points here.
Yeah, I can see that. UNLV versus Notre Dame.
Yeah, Notre or UNLV has actually been a lot better this year than it's been in years recently. They're sitting at 4-3 on the season.
Oh man, don't give anybody hope.
No. I'm just saying they are better this
Okay.
season.
Okay.
Not implying that they're going to win this game. They've actually been blown out the last 2 weeks by a combined score of 82-14. Um, but yeah, I'm going to take Notre Dame to win this one. They are a 24-point favorite in this game, so tells you what Vegas thinks of this. But yeah, I will take the Irish in this game.
Yeah, Boston College takes on Wake Forest. Oh boy.
Yeah, Wake's a 21-point favorite in this game, and I could see like my concern with this game for Boston College is whether or not they can run the ball effectively. Wake is not the best against the run. Obviously, this is the worst, or Boston College is the worst run offense I think in the entire country. Wake's ninth against the run in the ACC against the run. I mean, it's like I said, Boston College is the worst. They're averaging 2.2 yards per carry, averaging 69 yards per game. That's not nice if you're a Boston College fan. And like I said, they are 130th out of 131 teams in rushing the football. Only Akron is worse than them. Yeah, definitely taking Wake in this game. Not sure about covering it. I'll probably lean them covering since it's at home. But yeah, the Wake is definitely winning this game.
Gotcha. Last game on the schedule. Like I said, another short week. Pitt takes on Louisville. This could be a trap game for Pitt.
Yeah, a little bit because the line I have right here is Louisville's a 1-point favorite, which is a bit shocking. I'm wondering, I'm not sure what the health status is of the quarterback heading into this game. I think Keaton Silva should be back for this one. This game being a road game at Louisville, I'm assuming Cunningham's healthy as well, maybe playing into this. I'm going to take Pitt in this game. I just feel like their defense is going to be really, give a real good test to them. And, Bonaconda having a week off to recover after, running the ball a gazillion times against Virginia Tech. I think I think he really could use that weekend, and I think he's going to have a huge game in this one.
That's ACC Nation. That's Will Ogen, and I'm Jim Quist. We're going to be talking basketball in our next episode. Make sure that you stick around for that one. And we are available on radio, podcast, and YouTube. Until next time, cheers.
Score.